Hi everyone, my name is Mr. Lanham and I'm one of the biology teachers here at QO, and I'm going to walk you through a bit about sex-linked traits. Sex-linked traits, as their name implies, are traits that are caused by genes that are on one of the sex chromosomes. So they could be on the X chromosome or they could be on the Y chromosome. They're much more likely to be on the X because it's a bigger chromosome, but sex-linked traits are basically traits found on one of those two chromosomes. And so that causes a bit of a different inheritance pattern than traits that are carried on all the other chromosomes. All of those chromosomes, people generally have two copies of, but sex chromosomes are slightly different. So males have an X and Y chromosome, okay? And we're talking about humans here. It works a bit different in different species. Uh, and so the male will give either the X chromosome or the Y chromosome to the offspring, and that determines the sex of the offspring. So in humans, males are the sex determining individual. Okay, they determine whether the offspring is male or female. Females, on the other hand, are XX. So they have two copies of the X chromosome, so they will only give an X chromosome to the offspring, and it will be one of those two. So when we go to do crosses with sex-linked traits, we have to write them a bit differently. So here we're going to look at hemophilia, which is an X-linked recessive trait. Hemophilia is a bleeding disorder where an individual's blood doesn't clot properly. So when they get a cut, they bleed much longer than the average person. It can be quite dangerous. So since I said this is recessive trait, okay, a small h indicates the hemophilia allele, whereas a capital H indicates a normal allele. But we can't actually write it like this in a sex-linked cross. This is how you would write it if you were doing complete Mendelian dominance, okay? But in a sex-linked cross, you need to distinguish between the male and the female because they carry the trait differently. So here, I would write this. This is a female who has one normal allele and one allele for hemophilia. All right, I know it's a female because there's two X chromosomes, and the way we represent the alleles is superscripts, okay? The little letters, they look like exponents, attached to the X. All right, and then for the man, okay, so this is a man who does not have hemophilia, so he has a normal allele, but then there's no allele on the Y because this trait is only carried on the X, okay? So this is a big difference. Dad only has one copy of this. He doesn't have two because it's not on the Y chromosome. So then if we go ahead and look at their gametes, okay, mom is either going to give X capital H or X lowercase h, and dad is going to either give X capital H or a Y chromosome. So if we put in their gametes on our Punnett square, all right, that's what we get. And then we'll go ahead and fill it out. So we got X capital H, okay, X capital H, Y, X capital H, X lowercase h, and X lowercase h, Y. And so now we can, I'm going to color code these a bit. Okay, this individual has two normal alleles. So she won't have hemophilia and doesn't even carry it. Okay, this individual is also normal, no hemophilia alleles. Okay, this girl has a capital H, so she won't have hemophilia, but she does carry the hemophilia allele, right? Her other X carries the hemophilia gene. So we would call her a carrier. Whereas this individual, okay, this boy has hemophilia. Okay, he is X lowercase h, Y. He has no uppercase h to cover up the hemophilia allele. All right, so then if we ask questions about the results of this cross, like what percentage of the offspring would you expect to have hemophilia? You'd say, okay, she doesn't have it, he doesn't have it, she doesn't have it, and he does. So 1 out of 4, 25%. But because it's a sex-linked cross, we can also ask other questions like what percentage of the sons would you expect to have hemophilia, right? And if that's the question, you ignore the daughters, just look at these two sons, right? One son has it, one doesn't, 1 out of 2, 50% of the sons would be expected to have hemophilia. If they asked about the daughters, it would be 0% of the daughters. All right, so we'll come back to these crosses. As I mentioned, these X-linked recessive traits, they're going to be more common in males because males only have one X. So they don't have that opportunity to have another X with a dominant allele to cover up the recessive allele. So if they have the recessive trait, it will be seen. Whereas females have two X chromosomes. So in order for them to get an X-linked recessive trait, they have to get it from dad and from mom, and the odds of that are just lower. Some of the traits on the X chromosome that we tend to do crosses with, red-green color blindness and hemophilia. I mentioned hemophilia. Red-green color blindness is also carried on the X chromosome. So both of these two traits are far more common in males than in females because of this inheritance pattern. And I mentioned the vocab term carrier. A carrier is someone who carries but does not express a trait. So for these X-linked recessive traits, females can be carriers, like if she's X capital H, X lowercase h. Males cannot be carriers because they only have one X. So they either have the gene or they don't. Okay, they can't have one copy of it and one copy of the other version. So the second part here is these kind of images, and these are called karyotypes. This is a visualization of an individual's chromosome, basically a microscopic image of their chromosomes, and then they've laid them out by their chromosome number. Okay, sequentially. So this is chromosome 1, chromosome 2, and you have two copies of each. Okay, one copy from mom, one copy from dad. All of these chromosomes, you can see humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, 46 total. 1 to 22 are called autosomal chromosomes or autosomes. Those are all the chromosomes that are not sex chromosomes. Okay, this last pair, okay, are the sex chromosomes. And this individual has one X and one Y chromosome. So I can tell this is the karyotype of a male, one X, one Y. If it were a female, I'd expect two X's and no Y. In terms of these chromosomes, the X chromosome is a very big, very important chromosome. It has around 900 genes on it. You need this chromosome to exist. You must have it. More than 60 diseases are traced to it. Okay, including those ones we mentioned, hemophilia and red-green color blindness. Okay, that's not to say that it's just diseases. It has a lot of important genes that you need. Conversely, the Y chromosome has less than 60 genes. So X chromosome 900, Y chromosome 60. It is a small chromosome, and you can definitely be alive without it. That's what all females are. And in most of its genes control male development. Okay. All right, so I mentioned karyotypes. So take a look at this karyotype. See if you can notice anything different from the last one I showed you. Okay, I mean, one thing you might notice, this comes from a female, right? Two X chromosomes over here. Okay, two X's. But something stands out here. This individual has 3 copies of chromosome 21. Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right, this is what causes Down syndrome. Okay, this is called trisomy 21. You have 3 copies of chromosome 21 because during meiosis there was an error. 2 copies went into a single gamete, and then when that gamete fused with the other gamete that had the normal 1, okay, you get an embryo with 3 copies of chromosome 21. And that produces the symptoms of Down syndrome. And you can see that in karyotypes. And there's other trisomies that can occur. Most are pretty rare. All right, so we're going to end here with one more cross. Okay, so here we have a red-green colorblind man marries a homozygous woman with normal vision. Show the cross. So I'm going to use the letter R for red-green colorblind. Little r is the colorblind allele, big R is the normal allele. Okay, so my colorblind man is going to be X little ry. Okay, and my normal vision female, and they said she's homozygous, is going to be X big R, X big R. So then if we fill out our cross, let's just fill out the whole thing there. Oh, my H's turned into R's there. Okay, this is what we get. Okay, and now look at these questions. What percentage of their children would you expect to be colorblind? So again, the lowercase r is the colorblind allele. So I look here, this girl won't be colorblind, he won't be, she won't be, and he won't be. So I would expect 0% of them to be colorblind. All right, second question, what percentage of the daughters will be carriers? So of the daughters, which ones will be heterozygous? So I ignore the sons completely, just look at there's 2 daughters. So my only choices for this question are 0, 50%, and 100%. Okay? You can't have 25% of 2 people. So she is a carrier because she carries the colorblind allele but doesn't express it, and she is the same thing. So both of them. So 2 out of 2 would be carriers, so 100% of the daughters would be expected to be carriers for the red-green colorblindness allele. All right, that has been a breakdown of sex-linked traits. Now that you have that foundation, you can do some of these crosses on your own and make predictions about the inheritance of sex-linked characteristics.